Very inspiring talk. So, the first question we want to start with is to take you all the way back. Uh, can you talk a little bit about your early experiences and how they shaped what you are today?
Early experiences in IIT.
No, no, growing up. I mean,
Oh,
as early as you want to go. Okay, okay.
this is a problem. These are two people whom I asked many questions for several years in IIT. Now they are asking me questions, so I kept one glass of water ready here.
Actually, I have live blogged your talk, so there are like 1,000 people on Facebook who are asking questions.
Oh, okay. So I grew up in the state of Madhya Pradesh, as Anand had said. My father was an orphan. He grew up as a Gujarati. He grew up in Vadodara, studied there, then he ran away uh, from his relatives, etc., etc. My mother is from Goa, was from Goa. She's no more, unfortunately. And for some reason, when my father had left army and joined the medical services of Madhya Pradesh, I got into these schools. But he tried to bring in the army ethics and discipline into the government bureaucracy, which somehow did not work because anytime he would take action against someone, he would be transferred. So I studied in 14 different schools. So my first memory is that of a small place called Shajapur, where I don't think young students can think of that kind of school where what we used to have a tatpatti where we used to sit. And there was a single classroom, one teacher who used to teach first standard, second standard, third standard, fourth standard, each in one tatpatti. So I was a first standard student. So this is why people talk about teacher-student ratios and this and that. I think all that is bunkum. It all depends upon the capability of a teacher. For example, that teacher knew exactly what each student understood and what each student did not understand. Which student was naughty, which student was diligent, everything. Anyway, then I went through schools in Ujjain and Indore and Ratlam and Jagdalpur and Raipur and Satna and Guna and Gwalior, etc., etc. Uh, One thing I remember that in every school I had a couple of teachers who made great difference to me. And I understood that while there are good teachers galore, all teachers are generally sincere people, but few of them are different. And that, I believe, is the importance of being a good teacher, that you touch the lives. So I have the uncanny advantage. Most students who study at a single school, they get the same two or three good teachers. But having studied in 14 schools, I got at least 28 of them. So that's an extraordinary privilege that helped me. I, in my engineering, I did my engineering from Indore because when I was in Gwalior, I was underage for engineering admission when I passed my higher secondary. So I had to while away 1 year, which I did very meaningfully in studying BSc first year science. Since those marks did not count for anything, I had a free time, so I bunked most of my lectures, saw movies, uh, did some good NCC. In short, everything except studies. I studied one thing. I had studied up to higher secondary in Hindi, and the college education was in English. So I used that year meaningfully to study English through physics, English through chemistry, and English through maths, and English through English, of course. That was useful. Uh, since my father couldn't afford to send me anywhere, he said, don't appear for any competitive exam. So I went to Indore Engineering College. First year I studied uh, pretty hard. I had a friend of mine. But we had an amazing experience towards the end of that year when a particular difficult problem in physics which we are not getting, we went to a young physics teacher then and asked him how to solve it. He looked at it and he says, no, it is not important from an exam point of view. It shattered our whole confidence in the system because we were not really preparing for exam. We wanted to study. Much later, I discovered that the teacher said so because he couldn't solve the problem. And that was the first thing I learned later in IIT, by the way, that there is nothing wrong in accepting that you don't know the answer, because that is perfectly fine. But anyway, first year we studied very hard, but the examination system, which I just criticized, came to great help. You know, I discovered that we had to solve any 6 out of 10 questions. So, while first year I studied the entire syllabus, in second year I had become a better, knowledgeable person. And I could do about 70% of my syllabus and still get about 80, 85 marks. That gave me enough time to do a variety of other things, including swimming, playing chess, participating in dramatics, etc. In short, I had a wonderful time for 4 out of the 5 years at Indore. Then, since I wanted to become a teacher, I came to IIT Bombay to do my post graduation, and there, that was tough. I mean, forget bunking classes and seeing movies, but I survived. That's all. Those days, there was no computer science, so there was an elective under electrical engineering called instrumentation control computers. So, as a student of that elective, in which each one of us was taught some instrumentation, some control system, and some computers, and then some students, depending upon the final year project that they did, they got classified as computer science or controls or whatever. I was actually a control systems man. Luckily for me, I shifted over to computer center under Professor Isaac. So that way, I did not ever have to defend my ignorance in electrical engineering, accumulated through 4 years of fun time in Indore and whatever 2 years of tough time in and then, of course, I wanted to be either a teacher or a soldier. So when I decided to become a teacher, and I wanted to become a teacher at IIT, so, well, I was fortunate enough to get that opportunity. And for last 42 years, I have been teaching at IIT.
So I have one follow-up question about what you said. Uh, the fact that you studied in a regional language and then sort of switched over to English, and in your talk you had mentioned that parents should consider putting their children in regional language schools because that's they learn much better that way. But one of the concerns most parents have is the switch over to English at either 8th standard or 10th or 12th. And do you see that as a problem? Related question is that if MOOCs are going to be big, I think it's a given that MOOCs, the English content is going to be way ahead of regional language content. And do you see that as a problem?
So let me answer both questions. First of all, there is nothing wrong with English. English is the accepted lingua franca of the world, of higher education everywhere in the world. The problem is at which point do you do the switchover? Okay, the switchover will be required, but if that switchover is done too early in life, it deprives the children of some very fundamental concepts which can be easily gathered. So if you ask me to distinguish, I would say primary education is best done in one's own native language. A switchover should be gradual. It should not change the medium of all instructions later. I was quite amazed to find a very good sort of mixture in Central School, where my own children studied in IIT. So several courses were taught in Hindi and some courses were taught in English in gradual way. I thought that's a good way of it. The point I will still make again, 2 points in fact. One is that till such time that the child requires parental attention and intervention, the language to be used for studies is the one that parents understand well. Otherwise, the parents are unable to contribute. So there is nothing wrong if some children can study in English right from first standard, if parents can support it. But if the parents speak fluent Kannada, they have studied in Kannada, they can explain, in fact, simple science and maths in Kannada, but the child is studying in English. The child is actually losing an opportunity to learn from the parents. That is the only point I'll make. And transition to English, whenever it happens, it has to happen systematically and rigorously. I'll quote one incident which is out of accumulated experiments that I have conducted at IIT. Many people say I can't write English because my native mother tongue is not English. The experiment I used to do is for the MTech admissions to the School of IT. After the regular written test in programming, computer science, other concepts, etc., I would give them an additional paper which would have general questions like what is your value system, what are the ethical standards, whatever. One of the questions would be write about your family in 10 sentences. And the next question would be rewrite your answer in your own mother tongue. And this I did over 3 years consistently. And so the people who wrote bad English invariably wrote bad Kannada, bad Marathi, bad Telugu. The point is that people who have disciplined themselves to write properly in whichever language, they will generally carry that discipline. If they have not had enough time to prepare, they may still make mistakes. But they will eventually catch up and catch up faster because while learning the first language, they have disciplined themselves to write properly. People who have not disciplined themselves will find it very difficult. And we have such people in our BTech and MTech programs in IIT. I remember one incident, Anand might remember it, 2 o'clock in the night, both of us were involved in planning for VLDB, and he used to spend many sleepless nights with me. And while we were doing something, I was going through the email, and one of the submissions by my MTech student, and I was reading through that paragraph and telling Anand, see what nonsense, they can't even write correct English, and I was typing. He asked me, what are you doing, sir? I said, I'm correcting it. He says, don't do that. I said, why? He says, just send back the mail again with a one-line reply. Please correct all English errors and then resend, otherwise this submission will not be corrected. I did that. I felt I was not doing my duty. But actually I realized that what Anand told me was the right way of doing my duty. That boy struggled whole of the next day. Most probably he took help from someone, but corrected his English and then resubmitted. Actually, there was more learning for him that way. Yeah. So you see, language at any level, the correct usage has to be ingrained into the minds of people. And once you do that, then it doesn't matter at what level you switch.
All right. So, shifting gears a little bit, sir, you mentioned a lot at the almost at the end of your talk about technology and how it enables scaling up and so on. And IIT Bombay and you personally, sir, have been associated a lot with Akash. So a lot of questions have come up on Naveen's Facebook site about, do you feel Akash has achieved its purpose? What do you see its future, especially given that there's a whole flood of all these low-cost tablets coming from various companies and so on? Do you see? Do you think it has achieved its purpose, and what do you see is its future?
Very good question, and this question has been asked without any end by a lot of people. So let me first analyze the question itself. Has Akash achieved its purpose? To answer this question, I have to ask you, what do you think was the purpose of Akash project? And I think that purpose is variously being interpreted by different people. So let me first clarify what was the purpose, ostensible purpose, in the minds of the creators of that Akash project, and a shared dream that I have with them and I had with them. What happened is, when it was obvious that technology has to make great interventions into the educational system, then the issue was that technology has to be affordable, because the number of students that we have to cater to are so many that a costly technology will not work. The reason why experiments like those beautiful, successful experiments like Azim Premji Foundations, etc., cannot scale up is because a desktop, which is immobile, is much costlier. So the government was looking for an affordable device which could be meaningfully used to enhance the quality of education. Towards that end, they perceived of this project was conceived actually in 2010. I was asked whether I will participate because I used to run an affordable solutions lab where the only objective is to take existing technology and try to make a version which has acceptable parameters of performance and features, and yet it costs only one third, one fourth, or one tenth. So we had done a few things like smart card readers and clicker devices and so on. But at that time, I was busy in other things, so I said I will not be able to take up the project. The idea was that can you pay the price of a access device, a computing device, at a very low level? And it was perceived at that time, 2010, mind you, I'm talking about, that the price should be around the cost should be around $35. The price should be less than $50. Actually, everybody laughed at that deal. Okay. Mr. Sinha was the joint secretary then in the ministry who conceived this. At that time, there were pressures from the electronic industry. It's very curious that this is all a bunkum project and $35, nothing is feasible. $50, nothing is feasible. Professor Nicholas Negroponte, the creator of OLPC, and all of you know is an important experiment in affordable computing. At that time, the OLPC cost was coming out to about $180. And he advocated that to the leaders of the Indian government, saying that is the right way to go, because you require that kind of computing power and access capabilities in the device in the hands of students. The government persisted, saying that we'll go ahead with this project. And the project was given to a sister institution. And the maximum price point was defined. All the big players in the world did not come forward. Samsung, Intel, whatever you name. Because you see Apple sells these tablets at a very high price point. They are, of course, extraordinarily beautiful tablets, great features. But what we needed was an affordable thing. I inquired, I was observing the project on the sidelines, and I have always been working very closely with the industry as advisor to the users and so on. So I inquired with my friends, why are you not participating? Why are you not participating? They very clearly told me, some directly, some indirectly, that Professor Phatak, we are worried that India might pull down the global price point. You see, you must appreciate that in these technologies, price and costs are completely unrelated. A very similar situation in healthcare. A medicine drug tablet that I buy for 10 rupees, the actual cost may be only 10 paisa. So cost is what it is, it's very low. Price is what the market pays. And if people perceive that for tablets, people will pay 15,000, 20,000, 30,000 rupees, so they had no hesitation in charging them. That was the price point fixation. As expected, some small companies participated. One company won the tender. And because the price point was so low, and because that company was a small-time company, they had no expertise, earlier expertise in making tablets, the project started going for a toss. The specifications which were made at that point in time, which were considered very up-to-date from 2011 beginning perspective, 300 megahertz processor, 256 memory, a resistive touch screen, etc., a SD card slot, and the price was $49. Unfortunately, the first set of devices which came did not work properly. They had problems. More unfortunately, the vendor and my sister institution developed a huge TIF, which very soon became intractable problems. So in the month of November, the sister institution, December or January, they tried to reconcile. In 2012, February, the institution wrote to ministry saying, because of these intractable problems, we are unable to complete the project. The project is being returned to the ministry. It may be given to anyone else. That is when I was asked to participate. The mandate of that project was to procure 1 lakh low-cost tablets, experiment with them in terms of optimizing their software, hardware, etc., and deploy them in engineering colleges for enhancing engineering college education. This was an experimental pilot project, 1 lakh. Okay. In February, when I was requested, I said I will take this up, but I will have to renegotiate the hardware because I don't believe that hardware is good enough to do variety of things. So when the project came to us, I also said one more thing. I said that I can see your dream. Your dream is to deploy these tablets and to learn whether they can be used effectively to enhance quality of education. So procuring 1 lakh tablets cannot be IIT Bombay's main objective. Main objective is to get them distributed to a large number of students and teachers and to see whether they can make sense out of it for the education. So government approved that project proposal. They gave that project to us. We renegotiated the hardware. The hardware was upgraded from first from 333 megahertz to about 700 megahertz processor. We said we don't like resistive touch screen, so you should provide capacitive touch screen. They all agreed to do that, and they started delivering tablets. The first few tablets that we received in month of month of May and June, we found they were quite good. So our people started developing engineering applications, educational applications. You see, as I said, we also do this teachers training program on large scale, for which we are in constant touch with about 250 engineering colleges, which are our remote centers. Now, where do I deploy these 1 lakh tablets? So I talked to all the 250 remote centers and asked them whether they would like to become Akash project centers. They all agreed. So the idea was we develop some kernel applications, then we give these tablets to these colleges. We ask the teachers and students of these colleges to develop more applications and to actually use them in classroom learn. Unfortunately, the tablets which came, we found that while the applications would run, the operating system would hang because Android 2.2 was not a very stable operating system at that point in time. In the month of July and August, we renegotiated the hardware. In the renegotiation, we said that we need a larger processor speed. So we agreed to give a 1 gigahertz processor. Then we said we need much more memory because that was the bottleneck. So we agreed to give 512 MB RAM. The capacitive touchscreen, etc., was already decided. The reason he agreed is that he independently was working with a new chip which was released by a Chinese company then, the Alviner chip, which was a low-cost offering, low-price offering. So he was building something, we knew about it. So he agreed, he gave us 2 samples, and he says, "Iska price zyada hoga." So I said, no, price is as per government norms already fixed. He pleaded for one component, I still remember, there's a small camera on that low-cost tablet. And he says that camera cost me about 50 cents plus whatever other thing, should give me 35 rupees more. 35 rupees is not ordinarily a problem of argument. By the way, the price at which we got these tablets is 2,263 rupees. But I again told him that I can't give him a single paisa more. He threatened to remove the camera from subsequent deliveries. I thought about it. Then I realized that in any manufacturing process, those of you are familiar with it, you know that any change in the design that you do, your whole product may go for a toss for 2 months. So I blandly told him, please remove. He, of course, could not remove. We have received all 1 lakh tablets with camera intact. These have been distributed to 250 colleges. What we did is we conducted a training program for students and an orientation program for teachers. So about 12,000 teachers participated in that program, where for 2 days we just demonstrated the small applications that we have built and told them how we believe the tablets can be used in engineering education. And we asked them to write their own ideas on how that could be further enhanced. Then we conducted a 4-day training program for the students. In fact, today I saw some students here who have come from one of our remote centers in Pune. They are MCA students. They are working on these tablets. It was amazing. we had a capacity for handling about 10 to 12,000 students, 37,000 students registered. That is the level of interest. These students had to be from the same colleges because that is where we would be distributing these tablets. We finally conducted a 4-day program over 2 weekends on Android application development. 10,000 students attended. Now, what are these colleges supposed to do? 3 things. One, the teachers who have participated must themselves start dirtying their hands, work on these tablets, maybe continue to do research. 2, they must offer projects to final year students to develop educational applications and content. And we have specifically requested these colleges that also spend time on projects which will work on education for primary and secondary schools in Indian languages, because that is where we foresee a great use of these. Third point we said is that every college must teach one subject, one course in every semester, 60 to 70 students, where all students use these tablets. So you have given them sufficient number of tablets starting this semester now. Different people will choose different subject. So let's say somebody chooses database management system. Now, how is that course being taught today? Well, practically everybody uses Karsh Silvershar's and Sudarshan's book. And Sudarshan recently taught 8,500 teachers how to teach databases using our workshop model. So if they choose that course, they have all the open source material. All our training program, lecture, videos, etc. are in open source. All the assignments, tutorial problems, everything is open source. So the idea is that they will establish a server there. Remember I said we use this clicker application which we have ported onto Akash. All these 70 students every day will bring that tablet to the classroom. The teacher will actually ask quizzes on Akash which they will answer. The Moodle will collect all those answers so you can analyze the students' performance. All the video recorded lectures will be kept onto an SD card so the teachers can try the flip model where the lectures are delivered by Sudarshan but the question answers interaction happens with them. That is what we expect to do over the next year. We have also tried to participate in a school project. As I said, some schools we have selected where we are developing some apps. Now, the overall objective was that these 1 lakh tablets will be first obtained. Immediately, based on the feedback, the government will try and procure 55 lakh tablets, which will be offered to students at 50% concession. Unfortunately, this announcement was made by the government just when this project also started. So there is a huge confusion in the minds of people, and I would like to answer everybody, including those on Facebook, etc., because people have been asking me, sir, we understand that the price is 2,263 rupees. Where do we pay 1,136 rupees to get our Akash tablet? So I tell them with folded hands, it is not my mandate to distribute tablets. In fact, I tell them that these tablets are being issued to engineering college students and teachers free of cost, because the entire cost of procurement has been given by the government to me as the procurement cost. So there is no cost of these. The purpose was to establish that an affordable device is a valid possibility. Look at what has happened. I remember when I took over the project in May, the lowest tab price was 12,000 rupees. I purchased some, by the way, because I wanted to have Android tablets, ready tablets. I even had a conversation with my friend Ajay Chaudhary of HCL, where one of the tablets which I purchased was an HCL tablet, costing 10,000 rupees. I said, Ajay, I have contracted to get tablets at 2,263. You are selling this as 10,000. I don't think it is fair. First, he tried to give me the jazz of the actual cost, etc., etc. Then I said, come on, Ajay, you are talking to me. They said, all right, Phatak, but that is the price market is willing to pay. So what's your problem? And that is correct. See, that is how businesses will run. 10,000, 12,000, 15,000, 18,000 was the price range of comparable tablets in May 2012. Okay. When we succeeded in this project and when the president released this Akash tablet latest version in November, the prices became 5,000, 6,000, 7,000, 8,000. Today, the prices available openly in commercial terms is 4,000, 5,000, 6,000. I think the Akash project of Government of India can definitely take one credit, that through this project the Government of India has influenced, I would not say managed, influenced the affordability of the tablets globally. The tablet prices have come down. It is good for everyone. Okay. The second suggestion which I have made to the government is that instead of giving 50% subsidy to one and all, they should do two things. One, they should have models of the Akash tablet. What is required by an engineering college student is not necessary for a primary school student. So why can't we have models which will cost 2,000 rupees, 3,000 rupees and 4,000 rupees? And the 4,000 rupee model is actually a compute intensive model. In our Akash itself, we have successfully ported by putting first a Linux layer on top of Android. We have ported GNU C compiler. So C, C++, Python, actually it's a programming device. We have used it in our programming courses where students write programs on the Akash tablet itself. Okay. Very recently, we have succeeded in developing a complete native Linux port for Akash. So unlike your PCs, by the way, these tablets, Android tablets have a very fancy behavior. The default boot device is the SD card slot. So what we do is we put a Linux image on SD card. The moment you put that SD card and start the machine, it's a Linux machine. You shut it down, remove the SD card, it becomes an Android machine. So it's very simple to have. It's not a dual boot in a conventional sense, but it's almost like that. And you can have one of the two environments. The students who have been working, I just talked to 6 of them. We have sent out a message to all 250 colleges saying, please assemble the projects that you are doing. There are interesting projects that people have proposed and more projects being proposed. We have only one condition. All the developmental work that people do under this project must be released in open source so that not only other users of Akash tablet, but any Android tablet user can use it. In the long run, you ask for way forward. I have absolutely no doubt in my mind that government subsidy and low cost alone will not build a market. For building a market, you need to build a tablet economy in the country. The economy is not represented just by the price point, but it is represented by the acceptance and usage in daily life. So compare the mobile revolution that has happened. I would say that the mobile economy, and there was, by the way, a cross subsidy even in the mobile market. Imagine the low cost at which the mobile devices were being sold by people because the revenue was supposed to be through services. That model still continues. But the best indicator of an established economy in mobile is seen through a corner mechanic shop who repairs your broken mobiles, changes batteries and so on. Charges 50 rupees, 100 rupees, 20 rupees for this. The moment that corner shop vendor starts a sustainable business, you know that the device market is established. Till that happens, the market is not established. Now, when will that happen? That will happen when about 300 million tablets are in the market. How long will it take? Ordinarily, it may take 10 years. But through the government incentivizations, it could happen faster. If the next tranche of 55 lakh tablets come out, then possibly it may start happening fast. As we speak, yesterday I met the Secretary, Department of Electronics, Mr. Satyanarayan. We have been working also on the next versions of Akash. So we call it Akash 4. Our version is called Akash 2. There is a curious reason for that. When we wanted to standardize on Akash, we found that all websites with Akash name had squatters. Akash.com, Akash.org, Akash.in, everything is gone. So I immediately tried to capture Akash 2 because we named our thing as Akash 2. I could get only one site. Akash 3 has already been captured. So I personally paid money to get 3 websites called Akash 4. And that is why Ashok Jhunjhunwala, who is leading our subcommittee to give specifications on the next version, is called Akash 4. The Akash 4 specifications have just been published in by the Ministry of IT. They are requiring people to look at those specs and make suggestions for the next 15 days. All these suggestions will be gathered. Probably they will be further enhanced. What the government plans, this was my suggestion, they have accepted that you, since the subsidy, etc., is still a question that is not clear, the cabinet sanctions, etc., required, let us get a bidding process for DG S&D standard rates. And those standard rates, let the suppliers quote, the price that they will pay, they will be willing to accept for different volumes. So what are the volume discounts? 1 lakh tablets so much, 20 lakhs so much, whatever. And I am suggesting let people start buying them. They will buy in the open market. People are buying from the open market. In fact, the plethora of complaints that I have received is that they have paid money to this Datawind and they have not got the tablets. Now I understand they have sorted out all those issues. But whatever. So, sorry for the long answer, but I would submit that the objective has been achieved in two respects. One, we have established without any doubt that tablets can make the education far more meaningful and qualitatively better. Two, we have established that tablets can be affordable. Okay. And to a reasonable extent, we have influenced the global pricing for the tablet. The pricing will never go to 0 rupees. That never happens. The prices come down exponentially and stop. But I will not at all be surprised that within about 2 to 3 years' time, in about 2,500 rupees, you will get tablets which will be far superior to a top-end desktop that you have today. And when that happens, you can really do fancy stuff in education using it.
Thanks. What was the next question? So again, moving on to another topic of yours that you talked about people, about parents aspiring their children to go to IITs, take computer science, and so on and so forth. So in your mind, what is it that really defines an IIT or an NIT or these top engineering colleges that parents want their kids to aspire for? And is it the faculty? Is it that the institutions automatically take the top end students and therefore it feeds into itself, or is it something inherent about this? The second question is that students who enter into these institutions, are they moving away from a level of humility to a level of arrogance, which is kind of setting a wrong precedent?
I'll answer the second question first. The conversion of humble student to arrogant student is not happening within IITs. It has already happened before they come to IIT. You see, the students who go through very competitive examinations, either through quota route or homemade route, whatever, and when they succeed in getting top ranks and getting admissions, they somehow tend to believe that they know everything in the world. That arrogance is palpable. I have taught, luckily for me, 3 out of the last 5 years, I taught CS 101 to the entire batches. And, I thought that the arrogance would have toned down a little over the years, but that does not happen. Venki, you would recall when you joined IIT Bombay, I think on the first day itself, you must have felt fairly on top of the world, right?
On first day, but then you come down to earth on day one.
That's right. Well, some people don't come down to earth on day one, so we have to work throughout the first semester to beat their arrogance to pulp. It takes longer in some cases. But it is very important because arrogance is completely non-conducive to any learning. And as long as there are competitive examinations at the scale at which they take place in India, it is bound to happen. You see, if I am amongst the first 500 or 1,000 people, amongst 4 lakh people, who in the world, tell me, will not feel elated? It's bound to happen. So there's nothing wrong in it. The mistake is that everybody around such people start telling you, you are so great, you are so great, you are so great. Oh, मराठीत काय हरभऱ्याच्या झाडावर चढवून. So they are referred to by their all India rank which abbreviates to air. So we teachers often say that they come with a lot of air in their balloon-like heads at the beginning, and we have to bash that. So that is required. IITs help because once they come in on the first day, as he said, first day you realize that everyone around you is like you. Then you realize that almost all the teachers come from the same system. So you see, you lose your distinguishing mark completely. Then you are one of them, and then of course, then there are other mechanisms too. You asked me about IITs, NITs, and other institutions. So let me give you an example of an institution which is not IIT or NIT, which is, say, BITS Pilani, for example. Take COEP, one time VJTI. COEP and VJTI are government colleges. How do they retain their strength? An institution is recognized most certainly by the infrastructure that it has, the amount of money that it gets, the quality of students and teachers. But there is a thing which is very difficult to describe. I call it the ethos of a place. The ethos of a place is determined by the behavior and interplay of all the people within the institute and the campus. The ethos is exhibited by the dreams that they jointly hold. The ethos is exhibited by the energy levels that are displayed by the students in various activities. Contrary to popular belief, all these top performers who come to IIT, they don't for 5 years work only academics. You will see that they spend as much time and with as much passion in Mood Indigo, as much time and as much passion in participating in debating competitions.
Bridge.
Okay, bridge, for example. Late night CAC sessions, which I used to enjoy so much. At 2 o'clock, you go to any hostel, there's a group of 4 or 5 people having some adda, and fortunately, they would accept me as one of them for some dispensation. So those were the most enjoyable nights I had, always. Now, these things, whenever they happen, wherever they happen, that institution will stand us. The khudness to prove yourself to be better, okay? The confidence that you can do anything and everything in the world. I met one of my alumni students in Canada recently, Rabi Foda. He's an organizer of the alumni activities there. And his wife was complaining, this guy is mad, he keeps doing this, he does this, any number of times he makes mistakes, but he keeps doing the same thing again, different thing, whatever. Then I asked her one question, but tell me, don't you think he commits mistakes also with the same great confidence? She said yes. Now that is the hallmark of an institution where the people who constitute that institution move with great confidence in themselves. So I would say it is ethos. And the ethos depends, amongst other things, on the leadership and on the overall structure that you permit. So if, for example, a board-run institution does not give enough autonomy to the administration to run properly, or if the administration does not have a leader who is a go-getter, it is very difficult to move things out. College of Engineering Pune is such a fine institution, all Puneites will relate to it. There was a time when the College of Engineering Pune was actually not doing very well. VJTI was not doing very well. I'll tell you 2 incidences which my friend Harish Mehta told me. Harish Mehta and one other, forget his name, a serial entrepreneur in Bay Area. The serial entrepreneur had come to VJTI and he wanted to make some donation, contribution. He saw the dilapidated condition of the library while walking to the principal's office. He went to the director's office and he said, I am so-and-so. He said, welcome, have a cup of tea. He says, I would like to make some donation. To begin with, I would like to contribute to making this library up to date. The director says, well, we will have to see about it, I don't know whether we can accept some donations like that. Now, that is not leadership. Leadership says, oh, I'll get a receipt book, how much money. That is leadership. Harish Mehta was telling me that many years ago, Onward Novel, he gave some novel software. Nandu Pradhan was also, they were all together. And 2 years later, Harish Bhai tells me that he was so sadly shocked to see that all those CDs, etc., were nicely kept in a cupboard. Now, that is lack of leadership, that is lack of cohesion. You see, an institution must be active. I'll tell you what I have seen in the last 5 years on the other hand. When we started this distance education program and so on, Professor Sastra said, can our students attend your courses live? We said, of course, yes. Kannan Mavgalia arranged for the live participation. Students were attending courses. Not only that, he encouraged faculty members to attend courses. Faculty members sat there and they started enjoying. Mr. Kohli, who is the chairman of Board of Governors, was once telling me that, Phatak, you don't know the impact it had. When our teachers saw that teachers teaching a course in IIT can make mistakes and they don't mind and the students don't mind, they learn that there is nothing wrong in it. They found how students and teachers operate at a very similar level, at a very equal level. Okay. Now this is this is ethos. This is not prescribed in the syllabus or operating guide or anything like that. So I would submit that you take n number of private engineering colleges, 4,500 engineering colleges. Ostensibly, most of them have been started to run a business, and I think the society has to accept that the education will run as a business. There's nothing wrong in it. But once you understand it is running like a business, then you can ask the right questions. That if I am paying a price, am I getting the quality? Am I getting the required thing? Those questions are not being asked. Now, amongst these 4,000, 5,000 institutions, there are several, not too many, but several, including many in Pune. They are private institutions, but they have a different ethos. There are institutions which are building research ethos. There are institutions which have an absolutely very good undergraduate training program. So, I don't think you have to have an IIT or NIT or any such tag. Okay. I think it is entirely up to the institution, the current leadership of the institution and the current incumbents as students to decide what that institution. And I will tell you, it does not take more than 3 to 4 years to transform an institution from an ordinary institution to a great institution.
Thanks.
So, I mean, around the end of your talk, you said something which I think was very important, which is that no matter what you are doing in your current profession, spend some time and effort into helping out this 300 million and the revolution which is going to come in scalable education for them. So, have you given some thought to what specifically we could be doing? I mean, a lot of the people here are from the software industry, let us
Yeah,
say.
I have not given a thought, but I have admired some of the efforts which I have seen many places. For example, Persistent runs boot camps. Okay, you run programs for undergraduate students doing it. Ravi Pandit was telling me that this Cummins is trying to do something with the students and so on. If the industries do these kind of things regularly on enhancing the students' level of understanding, level of competence, then that would be a great service. Because you see, what you don't realize is, suppose Persistent runs a program for 50 students. Now, these 50 students go back to their colleges and talk about the program. And this encourages other students to do something like that. So I have not yet really given a thought on the details, but perhaps it would be a good idea someday to do some brainstorming and find out whether collectively the industry could incorporate some programs which will dovetail properly into our educational system.
I think one important thing which you said specifically relating to industry was if they could switch over to a mechanism where they are checking for capabilities of the students rather than their degree and marks. So can you talk a little bit more about that?
Actually, there is a process. There's a friend of mine, another past student from IIT, but earlier than yours, Prem Kumar Apte. I think he was working in Zenser for some time. He is very passionate about particularly teaching, learning of programming and programming competencies. He had built some models like that. But I'm telling you, it will be a good idea for the industry to have independent, scalable model of both competency contribution and competency evaluation. Oh, I see.
We'll have an offline conversation about that.
Oh, you're doing that?
Yes.
Wonderful. Then please let me know some details of your model. Maybe I'll get the model accepted all over the country.
I will definitely want to do that. I mean, you just thank you.
Oh, I didn't know he wants to build business using Phatak, but that's a good idea. There's no problem. Oh, bad. I'm feeling very excited about it. I'm feeling very happy about it. Well, one of my ambitions is that people generate wealth non-linearly. That is how the per capita income will grow faster than what the pundits predict. No doubt about it. Absolutely no doubt.
So
But
what
the
we'll,
price should be affordable.
Yes.
we'll just throw the, I mean, we are kind of at 5:10. I know people
Yeah,
going
yeah.
to have chai
Already
and,
late.
you know, so you've
5
been talking
o'clock
quite a
is
bit.
what you had said.
Get said. So we'll
So-
probably take one or maximum two questions from the audience.
Okay.
So there's one here and then one there, and we'll stop after that. Just two questions, please. We're already 10 minutes late.
Even randomness is very poorly defined, as I can see that. Because when he said one here, there were 3 hands. And all 3 believe that they are the ones elected.
Go ahead.
Sir, in the 2005-6, we started as a NTPL as a government program to get the engineering education. Now the IIT Bombay associated with this move and the EDS. So, what do you reasons see the why the NTPL failed to achieve its target or goal?
It's not NTPL, it's called NPTEL,
Oh, sorry.
National Program on Technology Enabled Learning.
Oh, yeah.
The program primarily concentrated on creating lecture material on various courses. There are more than 300 courses on which the courses have been created by faculty members of all IITs and IISc. This is very good material. All those courses and lectures are, the video courses are on YouTube. Other courses are available on NPTEL. So the project has not failed. It has achieved the limited purpose for which it was intended. Namely, create first-class quality material of the caliber where the highest caliber engineers will expect to achieve that. That was the objective. It was expected that these lectures will be adopted by most of the engineering colleges for their work. Unfortunately, they are not adopted because, as I said, if I am a student in COEP, for example, and my teacher says, Abhi, you will listen to this lecture from Professor Shivgaonkar, the best lecturer in communication. I listen to one lecture, I find that I cannot answer even one of the questions that is asked in the last 3 years in the university exam. I am not interested anymore in listening to that lecture. But if my teacher says that your examination will be based on what you learn in these lectures, and that during the tutorials I will help you solve problems which are mentioned in those lectures, then I will listen to them. This is the connection that we are trying to build. I have vociferously suggested. So there is another committee which is looking at the implementation of these quality things. What we are suggesting is that at least 500 colleges should be permitted by their respective universities to choose certain courses and say, as far as those courses are concerned, the examination and evaluation will not be done by university, but it will be done through either MOOCs or through such lectures with a local arrangement between teacher and the. Exactly the same thing is echoed by Sam, Dr. Sam Petroda, when he says that 10 to 20% of the total evaluation of the degree should come from such. So I would say that it is not correct to say that NPTEL has failed to achieve its objective. Its objective was misunderstood, like Akash objective was misunderstood. Its objective was to create quality resources, like Khan Academy lectures. Now, has Khan Academy failed? No. Khan Academy does not give school marks or something, college marks or something. But people still believe that that is useful, so therefore they study. When we connect up the evaluation and the delivery of lectures together through additional problem-solving approach, it will work.
Thank you, sir.
Good evening, sir. Sir, myself is Sandeep Patil from Dr. D.Y. Patil School of Engineering, Lohgaon. Sir, as usual, I like this lecture of you very much. Sir, my question is just like medical education. Can we try to include last year or some last 6 months, last semester, we can say, as part of just industrial training in our engineering degree education, so that that gap which we always talk about, gap between academia and industry, can be filled up.
The problem is that if we have to apply this rule, there will be roughly 1.2 million final year engineers who will have to be accommodated in the industry. Given the current status of industry where it finds it difficult to provide sitting place for their own employees, to get these additional people and to supervise them would not be very easy. Industry is very selective. They would like to have people as interns or trainees only when they are fairly confident that these people are later on employable if they learn. So that is a good suggestion, but is not implementable, unfortunately.
Thank you,
The
sir.
better thing would be to get industry-sponsored projects and get them done in the college. Now that requires the college teachers like us to slog our asses out. We're not willing to do that. In the schools, the labs close at 5 o'clock. You're asking about the difference in ethos. In my institute, the rule is that even if a single student wants to work for 10 minutes in a lab at 2 o'clock in the morning, the rules must be such that the student is permitted to do that. Do we have that rule? No. Make that rule. Make things accessible. Make yourself accessible. I will tell you that will change a lot. You don't need projects from anywhere else. You can give industry-grade projects in your own institution. In fact, if I remember correctly, your own college has attempted similar things where the projects sponsored by the industry are executed. I have seen that in
Correct.
many colleges here. But remember, if a teacher is currently spending 8 hours a day on the work, then the teacher should be willing to spend 10 hours a day for the work. Those extra 2 hours you spend on interacting with individual students and groups on doing industry-related projects. The second thing I would suggest is that this I have suggested many times, the industry and academia should exchange people on mini sabbaticals. Just 2 months, 3 months, pay some stipend to the teachers and get the teachers to spend time in industry for 2 months or 6 months. Similarly, continue to pay salary to your employees, but let them work in educational institutions for 2 months or 3 months. I will tell you this person-to-person interaction will bring the ethos in two places to a similar level much faster than any other.
Thank you, sir.
All right. Sorry, sir. We went 15 minutes over, and I know it's
Yeah,
been
in fact,
a long day for you driving from Mumbai and spending these 3 hours with us. So thank you very much. It was really very encouraging, and to hear you talk about your passion on learning and education and scaling it. So thanks for the time that you spent here.
Thank you. Thank you.
I'd like to request Anand to offer a small gift to Professor Patel.
Oh, wow.
And thank you very much.
Tradition demands that a gift should be opened in the presence of...
Yes. So we also like to thank CSI and ACM through which we were able to connect to all those colleges.
Wow! This is amazing. Now, how do you know if it fit?
No, I tell you how we decided, so we asked around and it was decided that your size is between our size.
Talk about engineering approximation.
So thank you very much. much for joining. As mentioned, our next tutoring session will be 27th July. Vijay will be taking it. But a lot of other things actually are happening here at Persistent. So next Friday on 5th July, we have Dr. Sriram Rajamani from Microsoft Research coming here. So he will be taking a session the evening 6 o'clock. So all of you are invited for that. He'll be talking about research in programming. So thank you very much, and please join us for a cup of tea.